पॉलिसी बाजार पर 1 करोड़ रुपए का टर्म लाइफ इंश्योरेंस केवल 450 रुपए महीने से शुरू। वाव!
Dr. Swasti Rao, Associate Fellow, Manohar Parrikar Institute of Defence Studies and Analyses, Europe and Eurasia Center, is now joining us here on the show. Dr. Rao, many thanks for speaking with us. First of all, in this conversation, Zelensky with the Prime Minister has spoken about a peace formula and has sought India's help in that. What help can India render? Do you see India playing the role of a mediator? Is that a possibility?
Right. Good evening, Maha. Let me just clarify this one thing, is that, India's stand towards Ukraine and the Russia-Ukraine war has been about cessation of hostilities and ending violence, right? And upholding any process of mediation, negotiation, because whenever the war ends, and the war has to end at some point of time, then there'll be a role for negotiators and mediators. So that is one. You asked me about Zelensky's peace plan. You see, the problem with peace plan is that, he starts with this idea and says that if there is one thing, the peace plan actually talks about 5 things, and I'll tell you in a while what those 5 things are. But the problem is that he starts with this, ground that he says that first we have to reject neutrality. So he says that the peace plan has no room for neutrality. And then he goes on and says that there are 5 items of that peace plan, which is that there has to be punishment for aggression, there has to be protection of life, there has to be restoration of security and territorial integrity, there has to be security guarantees, and the determination to defend oneself. Now, if you actually go into the details of this peace plan, it kind of takes for granted the fact that there's one party that is aggressing, and this, and he calls for punishment. But if you look at India's official stand for it, India has so far, avoided taking any clear sides on it, in the war, with respect to, whose cause is India standing by, and India has been maintaining a very neutral stand. So as far as playing a role for Zelensky's peace plan is concerned, I do not see a lot of, progress out there. Having said that, what is, something to be noticed and something to be appreciated is that, you see, a few days ago, Zelensky's foreign minister, Dmytro Kuleba, had come out with a very scathing criticism and a very, I would say, a very misunderstood and a very, a statement about India and very bad taste about how India is buying cheap oil at the cost of Ukrainian people suffering.
That's
okay,
right. Yes.
So, and I think that particular thing was also he had given an interview to NDTV.
Correct.
So what I want to say is that obviously he did not really understood that Indian position well enough, and then there was a lot of the criticism about how he had been blinded by emotionality to really understand the position and the stand of countries like India. So having said that, what is to be appreciated and noted is that days after this phone call, this interview with Dmytro Kuleba, happened, which really put up India in a bad light, I think Zelensky has made this effort to sort of, build those bridges back.
That's
with
an interesting
a formidable
perspective
global
there.
player such as India.
That's an interesting perspective. Dr. Swasti Rao, just stay on with us for a moment. We'll play out what, in fact, the foreign minister, Ukrainian foreign minister told NDTV, and then I'll come back to you quickly.
We've seen more direct statements in the recent past from Prime Minister Narendra Modi on the war that's been imposed on Ukraine. Do you believe India's Prime Minister can play a more direct role in reaching out to the Russian leadership to try and end this conflict?
Definitely. India is a very important player on the global arena, and Prime Minister of India, with his voice, can make a change. Indeed, we are looking forward to the moment when Indian foreign policy will call spade a spade and name the conflict not war in Ukraine, but what it is, the Russian aggression against Ukraine. President Zelensky, speaking at the G20 summit on Bali, announced a peace formula that consists of 10 steps and represents an excellent platform for global engagement of countries willing to bring peace back to Ukraine. So India is more than welcome to participate in this in the implementation of this formula, and we will need a strong leadership of your Prime Minister to end the war.
Dr. Swasti Rao, I think he points out once again what that peace formula, how it was, pronounced by President Zelensky and what it will look like, which you've already highlighted for us. I want to understand from you, is India the only country or, perhaps the only country that can even think of playing the role of a mediator because it still has lines of communication, not just open with Russia, but a very healthy, friendly relationship with Russia?
Well, yes, Maha. See, one of the reasons, there are many countries in the world today that want to play that role of mediation. Turkey is also one country, and Turkey has been playing a very constructive role, especially when it came to finalizing the grain deal, the grain corridors, through the Black Sea, etc. But let me now just tell you certain distinct qualities that India has in today's time and space to actually play the role of a mediator. You see, one of the most important things that India has, that a mediator should have, is the virtue of credibility. Why do I say so? Is because, even if you look at the G20 platform or anywhere else, India is a formidable global player. There is no doubt about it. India is shaping its own conversations. India is shaping a lot of other conversations for a lot of other developing countries. It's all there. But the credibility factor is something that I'd like to emphasize a bit upon, because India is one country that has an absolutely, I would say, clear track record with both the belligerent parties, right? And India is having good relations both with Ukraine and with Russia, with the West and with Russia. And India is the only player where it's like which really has that ability to sort of try and call for a meaningful, negotiation. So I'm not saying that India can bring an end to the war. That would be stretching it too far, and that would be like very unrealistic to say that India can really play a role to bring, the war to an end. I don't think it's like that. But India has echoed through the Prime Minister's statement, the fact that it is not really a time for war. Everybody understands that. And whenever there will be a situation which calls for negotiation, because you see, even if you look at the war, there has been a war fatigue. There has been, because of economic problems, not just in Europe, but world over, because of the weather, because of a lot of other problems in Russia also, with respect to its supply lines and its fuel shortages, and the time that it is requiring to sort of, I think a few days ago, I think President Putin said that we are ready for a negotiation, but then
we just heard President Putin there. Correct.
Yeah, so I'm saying that whenever that happens, I think India's position is that of a credible player, right? Not that there are other players that don't want it and only India does, but India's credibility is something.
All right, that sets India apart in this situation. Many thanks, Dr. Swasti Rao, for that unique perspective on this entire saga now that is taking shape perhaps towards some sort of negotiation, as we are hearing those voices coming in from both Ukraine and Russia now. Dr. Swasti Rao, many thanks.